Podcast with hosts Andrew Clark and Chris Emery. This is designed to be a discussion on all things life and faith. We hope this serves as a weekly resource and encouragement to you.
Welcome to another episode of the Bayview Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Andrew Clark, joined, as always, by, I'm going back to the regal Chris Emery.
Regal. Hey, awesome.
How are
What's
you?
up, everybody? I'm good, man. Good to be here. Good to be in the studio. Good to be with each of you listening from wherever you're listening from, whatever you're doing, driving down the road, mowing the grass, sitting in the office, whatever it may be. Just good to be with you here. So we always enjoy our time. We hope that this each and every week is just kind of a cool moment for you to have some encouragement, some equipping. As we say in the intro, this is just kind of a dialogue of all things faith and life. And we hope it's something that you look forward to. We look forward to it.
100%.
Yeah, it's always good.
Good stuff. And I think, today's a fun episode as we, obviously with the podcast, we hope this is a midweek kind of opportunity to keep growing, keep learning. Maybe even if it just brings up a conversation that you need to have with family, or just a time you want to research more, look into. But part of it is the idea of helping people and continue to help. And we know that online and the idea of not being in person, this is a thing that's very much prevalent in our day and age for all aspects of stuff. And so today we've asked that he'd step out from behind the booth, but Brock Emery to join us. And we, Brock plays a massive role in the podcast. I mean, it was kind of his little baby brainchild.
Yeah, it really was.
Put a lot of work, him and Jeremy Radke, who's been on the show with us before, to kind of put this all together. But Brock, you play a massive role in Bayview's online presence. Like it's your responsibility here at the church. And so, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
But for those who maybe you've been on before, but who haven't got a chance to really hear from you, what is it that you do here at the church?
Yeah, so my current title is our Digital Campus Pastor. And in lieu of today's conversation, that title might be changing here in the next few weeks, just as we re-explore what our online presence kind of is as Bayview, what we hope to be. But yeah, so I run all of our digital campus, all of our online kind of stuff. I also run the people portion of our tech team. Jeremy does all the actual tech stuff, but I schedule our teams and minister to them best I can. And then I'm also our young adults pastor.
Very cool. Very cool. And there's a lot underneath that umbrella. I mean, that's a short version, but so many things fall under that big thing. And
yep.
But we want to focus today on your role as what has been Digital Campus, and I don't know if that's an inaccurate description. I mean, because it could mean so many things. And I think what really catapulted all this to the forefront is not that online services or digital worship is all that new, but certainly 2020 changed the whole dynamic.
100%. And
the moment that happened, if you weren't streaming online, you better be quick at figuring out how to do it online. And according to Barna, by the middle of all the pandemic, 96% of churches were streaming online services.
Oh,
they had to,
yeah.
Right? I mean, that's a lot. Now, I wouldn't say 96% were doing it well.
Sure.
I mean,
no.
I'm not even saying we were doing it well. We were learning.
Yep.
That was early on in our days. We were figuring it out as we went. The pandemic threw all of us into the digital worship age at a much higher level. And now here we are, 4 years plus on the back end of all of it. And I think that there are now a lot more questions coming around. There are some larger churches that have chosen now to stop offering their services streaming online. And my understanding is some of the reasoning is that the biggest reason I'm understanding is that they don't want to give people any more excuses to not come live to worship.
Sure.
They're wanting to push people into the building to experience worship in person. And I think that conversation, hearing that from some of these other churches and pastors we all respect, I think it has brought about the question that we've asked here. Is there a time where we would stop offering online services or streaming in the time, or is there still an important role they play?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the topic today. In-person worship versus online worship. And let me just set this baseline before I kind of release the hounds and we start conversations. We're not going to choose one or another today. We're not even going to say one's better than the other. We're not saying that. We're just saying here's a dialogue.
Yeah.
It is our intent at this point to continue to offer both. We are obviously going to keep offering in-person worship services.
Correct.
It is our current intent to continue to offer online streaming each and every Sunday of both of our venues. So that's the plan right now. So I'll just throw that out there now. But I do think there's a great conversation to be had about the role it's playing, and is online maybe doing damage where we don't realize it? Is it holding people back? Is it a crutch? I don't know. So that's where we are. Those two, both sides. What do we think?
Yeah, that's kind of the question, isn't it? So COVID did not introduce online church as a new thing. It had been a thing. It was a newer thing because people, as technology just kind of develops, it becomes a more present thing. There were mega churches that were already making it a massive thing, home watch parties that people would gather for just together to do their own little home church. So the idea of online church isn't new. It's just newer to the masses. As you said, COVID created the necessity for online church. Every church stepped into it in some way. And now, for the first time, what we're in is a true transitional period of like you said, asking that question, what purpose does it serve? And some churches, all online service, that the only purpose that it had for them was just a temporary fill-in while they couldn't meet in person. There were plenty of churches that the moment they were allowed to just go back in person, they just nixed online altogether.
Right,
like they didn't even keep it around for convenience. It was just like, okay, finally, we don't have to do this anymore.
Sure.
Let's just cut it. It's gone. We can go back to what we're used to.
Sure.
Other churches found a larger following of people that were not in their church building before, amidst all of that. Mm-hmm. In the moment, looking back, a lot of us feel like COVID wasn't necessarily as bad as media necessarily. I'm not trying to take sides. As bad as media portrayed it to be, whatever. But in the moment, there was a lot of fear, and a lot of people trying to figure out what's going on. And there were a number of people who looked to church, like with any mass crisis that's ever happened over really any time in history, people look to the church for answers on things they're uncertain of. And so Bayview's just kind of in the middle of all of it.
Right.
We're in the middle of trying to get our services across while in the middle of all that, but now we're out of it. What are we doing?
Well, and you would know these stats because this is your area that you minister in for us. What have you seen, maybe not overall viewership, because I know that our services are viewed hundreds of times through the course of the week, but just in that stretch of maybe, the 8 or 10 hours of daytime time of Sunday morning, like, are we seeing dozens of views? Do we have hundreds of views? I mean, what is our online viewership like on a Sunday morning across all of our platforms?
Yeah, so if you're just going to combine both services, live with us, we see 30 to 40, sometimes 50 individual numbers now.
In the moment. So that's tuning in at 9 or 10:30, right, following with us through the service. Okay.
Right, and that stat is skewed based on the number, like one viewer is actually 2.5 people based on families watching at home together, right. Whatever. You can think of that number whatever works best for your mind. But by Sunday evening, we're at about 60, 70 total views.
Okay.
And then throughout the rest of the week, it averages, just our modern service averages out to about 100 views per week.
Okay.
And then we actually don't get a ton of views on our traditional service because most of those people all watch online live during the moment because they're people who are traveling south for the winter.
Or they're shut-ins and they're unable to get out.
Right. So based on the service, obviously there's some differences there. So about 150 views a week on average.
All right. So let's pause there real fast. If you're not familiar with Bayview, we offer two worship styles. We have two different venues here on our campus. We have a traditional service, and then we have what we call our modern service. We live stream both. They both have their own channel. And so that's just so you have some context. That's what we're talking about between the two.
Yeah. And so with that being said, different church services, as they do in person, are going to serve different purposes for what we're doing. And that's what we've seen is because of the people we know are watching online in our traditional service, it's that much more essential that we offer an online platform for those people because we know them personally. We know why they're watching. They attend in person when they can. But for our modern service and what we're seeing for other churches, just their normal services, a lot of those personal relationships are not being built, but it's not necessarily anybody's fault. It's the online church is still new, and now that it's out of just doing online church out of a mass need, now how do we actually further those relationships with people who are watching online?
Right.
And we've tried that. When I got here, my role was kind of up in the air. I kind of had to create it, so I was thinking of ways to do that. And one of the things we did was I would go live to our service every Sunday for 5 minutes before each of our services, and I would attempt to get online engagement in return. And I got almost nothing. Sure, I had people, family members who were like, here, let's help out, let's comment in. But for the most part, we weren't really receiving any reciprocating feedback or just people who are wanting to be involved in that capacity.
Right. And
that can be for a number of reasons. People watch on their TVs at home. Okay, well, you don't have a keyboard typed into or connected to your TV.
Right.
Those things will always be impossible to read unless we have those personal conversations with them.
Yeah.
But eventually we nixed that. We weren't going live anymore because it's not what people are looking for when they're watching online on a Sunday morning.
Well, and I think part of that is we're learning. Like this is
right.
this is still a very, in the big picture, this is still an extremely new area, and I think we're all still trying to figure it out. And I think that's why your job is morphing and adapting as the landscape changes, as we learn more, as we adapt and change. So let's start here. So we were on the bubble pre-COVID of streaming live. We were already offering our services later that afternoon, so if you missed church, you could catch it later that day, and we had a lot of people that would do that. COVID changed it. We invested time, personnel, money, and we've committed to not just having an online service, but doing our best to offer a high-quality online experience.
Right.
And, we're always getting better, but I think what we offer is really, really strong. And so the question that has been asked, is online opportunities, offering an online service, is that hurting our in-person attendance? That's a question thrown out there, I think, all across the board. Some churches have answered it themselves by they believe so they have shut down online.
And I think there's as a quick clarification, we are talking about the idea of live streaming versus just the video being posted.
Correct.
I think that's really important because I don't think we would ever stop posting the message. It's just the opportunity to tune in at 9 or 10:30 when the service starts versus it'll be posted at noon, 5 o'clock, whatever, later on, so you can watch it whenever.
Right.
How you can the rest of the week anyways.
Right.
I think that's what we're talking about more than anything.
So it's for the individual or family that they're getting up that morning and they have the decision to make. Do we get our kids around? Do we get dressed and showered and all that and then drive to church and go in person? Or do we just brew some coffee, let the kids run around, let's just watch from home today? We're talking about that decision, that intersection right there.
Yeah, I think it's one of those questions that, of course, we can speculate and we can make assumptions based on conversations we have, but I don't think enough churches have surveyed or hard researched it themselves to really spew out some average that I can just give you.
I've got some good research from Barna and from Pew. Before I dive into that, though, let's throw out our speculation because that's what's more fun.
I'm fine with that.
Let's guess, because we like guessing. No, just in our opinion, because opinions do matter. I mean, what are some reasons? What are some good reasons why we think someone would choose online? What are some positives as to why we're proud we offer that? Because for these people, it's important.
Yeah. The obvious ones, elderly that are shut in.
Yep.
They don't have access to transportation. Weather. We live in northern Michigan. Just like many other churches in the north, like that, weather's going to be a factor. We very rarely close our doors, but that doesn't mean somebody's feeling safe enough to drive in on a Sunday morning.
Correct.
Some of the less obvious ones are, there could be a family with kids with special needs, and they may not know how that church can accommodate them, but they also don't want to be a burden to those around them.
Okay. So that's one.
And then there are also people who are just too embarrassed to show up at church because and that's not an online thing. That's something that we've always kind of
They've just
battled
always
with
that.
is like, I don't want to step a foot to a church, but at least now I can watch online and see what it's about and hear the message.
I mean, all those, I think we have people that are on vacation. I think that's a good, I'm happy for that. Like I said, people that are sick or ill. We have a small pocket. We don't have a huge pocket, but those that up north, if you're listening from anywhere other than the north, there's a thing called snowbirds, and it's the older folks that they go south for the winter. If you live somewhere like Bradenton or Sarasota, you know exactly what snowbirds are because they invade your world every winter. But they're far away, and so they engage. So I think there's a lot of really great things where I'm so glad we offer online streaming for this situation, this scenario.
Yeah, and to watch it when it's happening does have the feeling of, oh, I'm involved in the now. If that makes sense.
I think it makes perfect sense.
I'm a part of something.
Yeah.
Like I am part of the service.
Yeah.
Where I think when you watch it on a Tuesday, it feels like, oh, I got to make sure I go check out the service. Like, you know, I think for some people you could argue there is a difference between like, no, I tuned in. I rode right along. It's almost like the, this is probably totally off, but like when a new movie comes out, like you want to be the first to see it. There's a difference between like seeing it, experiencing it, be part of it. No spoilers later on. It's like you got to be a part of it. And it's, you know, I think the personal side is nice. I went to church this morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it was on my couch or fill in the blank wherever. So I do think there's some of that.
Well, we've all traveled, and so I mean, I'm sure at some point, I know I have. I'm sure you guys have too. There's been times where I've been driving or sitting in an airport on a Sunday morning, and I have the opportunity. I tune in at 10:30. I'm in the service with my church family, even though I'm not there in person, and it feels good.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And similar to the movie thing, like with sports. Okay, I know some hardcore fans would prefer just to record the game so they can watch it later themselves. Maybe that's the case, but a lot of the time you want to be involved watching it, experiencing the same reactions and hype and drama that everybody else is feeling with you around the world at that moment.
Yeah.
And there is something special to that. Now, we may see a majority of our views later on during the week. That doesn't even mean they're watching the whole thing. Maybe they're just tuning in for the worship. Maybe they're just tuning in for part of the sermon. I don't know.
Andrew and I like to believe they're only tuning in for the sermon.
That's fair.
We like to believe that. I'm just saying, you know.
They're hoping one day we'll sing.
Dude, one of these days I'm going to sing, but I only know the Love Boat theme, so that's going to be rough.
That's where our views drop to zero. We do cancel online service. No.
All right, so let's do this though, because we've had these conversations as well. What are some of the reasons why a church, not necessarily us, what are some reasons why a church may feel like the online streaming in the moment is hurting them? So what are some of the negatives as to why a church may feel like, we need to pull it?
I think you're really only going to find out through personal conversation. There is a family here that I have had personal communication with, talking to several of them one-on-one. If you're listening, this is not a dig or anything, but they live about 30 minutes away. They do have a young child in their family. For them, it really is. It's just going to be easier if we watch online as a family together. Now, there's a couple really key points in there. One, obviously we're addressing the fact that they just don't feel like getting up and doing the work to go to church that morning, but they have expressed they watch it as a family together.
Sure.
Which is important because they still value it enough to not just watch it on their phones on their own time.
Right.
They still value church. It's just where does that value lie in wanting to get up early enough to drive in,
So I think that's probably the big overlying one is online streaming making it easier for people to say no to coming to in-person church.
Right.
And I mean, I think that's a question we can ask, and there is some research on that. But I think the bigger question would be maybe that we would have to explore is what is it about in person that is still, because I'm not choosing one or the other, and like I said, we're not shutting one down over the other. We're keeping both. I don't think there's any denying though that in the big picture it is just better in person.
Sure.
I mean, am I wrong? I mean, it's just better in person. You can show me pictures of your vacations, like you just took a cool vacation out to the Pacific Northwest, and great pictures. And you guys went over to the Holy Land, you and your wife, and you showed me great pictures of all these cool things. That was cool to see, but it's nothing compared to being there in person.
Sure.
And I think that's where some of it is like, hey, online is great, but I think my concern or maybe the negative I see of it is don't let that be your only channel as a replacement. Why?
Sure.
But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, is that accurate? Is that true?
Well, I think that's where, again, in my opinion, you get at the core of it. Then is to watch online because you just feel more comfortable at home. It's like, okay, I can vibe with that. I'm a homebody. Like, I get that aspect. I think what we would argue, and maybe this is what you're trying to say, Chris, when you get to the in-person side of things, is it's not that we preach better live, right? Or it's not that sometimes the worship sounds better live. Sometimes things just are better live. Like, it's always one thing when you see the video, someone's like a concert they were at, you're like, yeah, it just sounds better. I'm sure it was better there. It is the community side of things. Yeah, 100%. So that's where I always look at the online versus in person is if you are strictly an online family or individual, awesome. But where's the community side of things for you when it comes? Because I think that's what we need to make sure is understood by the church. Yeah. The church is not simply just the hour on Sunday morning.
That's important.
It is the fact that you can show up, you can see people, you can be with people, interact with people like that. That's what COVID took from us, right? Mm-hmm. That's when we get thrust into this. That's what that was taken, was the idea of being in community with people. And I think that's what can become the danger side of things is it is beneficial that we offer streaming because people can still feel like they're a part of the church. Okay, then so where are you getting your community then after that? Because it's one thing to watch online and never be involved. It's another thing to watch online but then serve in a ministry. You know what I mean? Like I think that's where we start getting to the nitty gritty of things is, and maybe that's what we're trying to say too, is online the crutch of I can claim I'm in church, but it's really just I'm claiming I watched the service, which is not actually church.
Yeah. Right. Because really what we're, at that level we're talking about, where did I watch and listen from? And, that's those that go to church on a regular basis in person. Yeah. I mean, so much more of your day is outside of just the sermon and the worship. In fact, let's be real. For some of you, the sermon is the low point. Like I come here for the music and the fellowship, and I'll listen to the guys preach, and I hope they're done fast, like you're watching your watch, because that's not why you're there. So so you're hitting on a pretty big understanding that what we're talking about is not how did I hear the message, but how did I experience church today? Yep. And so now what we've done, maybe we're talking about a question that's been around a lot longer than online services. It's been around probably as long as there's been church. Do I have to go to church to be a Christian?
Sure.
Obvious answer is, well, no. You do not. Going to church does not make you a Christian. Yep. You do not have to go to church to be a Christian. You don't have to have attendance charts. That's not how this works. Yep. We're saved by grace through Jesus Christ. Your salvation is through Jesus and Jesus alone. But when people have asked me that, I am quick to say no, but then I follow up with, but why would you want to?
Mm.
Why would you want to do this alone? Why would you want to miss out on that big word, community? Why would you want to miss out on the chance to build relationships? Why would you want to miss out on catching up with people you haven't seen all week and hearing how their day is going and having a cup of coffee together? Why would you want to miss out on watching your kids go to their different age classes and be with other kids their age and learn about Jesus and have fun? Why would you want to? And that's where I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah. It's almost like I live next door to the baseball stadium, but I only watch it on TV. Why?
Yeah.
You don't have to go to a stadium to be a baseball fan, but man, I'll be honest with you, like I can't watch baseball on TV, but I love going to live games.
Yep.
And so when it comes to church, I think for me, and maybe this is where we've all felt the tension, is it's not that we're sad that anybody watches online, and we're committed to continue to offer that, but we're like, man, but are there a small percentage who are using it as an escape from engaging with a community they really need?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Because let's be honest, it is way nicer to preach, or teach, or worship to a room full of people. But that's not why we do it. And I think that's where you got to be careful too. Is the argument of just like we just want more butts in the seats? It's like that's not that at all. It is just where are you finding community?
Yeah.
Right. And has this become for some? And I think that's what we got to make sure. It's like, for some, we understand the need to watch online. For others, it's the need to watch online just to check a box. And there's nothing else the rest of the week that would have any indication there's not community. Yeah. So I think it goes back to your thought of like, are we talking about, do you have to go to church to be a Christian?
Yeah.
More than anything.
No. And I mean, community is a big deal. I mean, Jesus, he formed community around himself. He's the Son of God. He certainly could have done it alone. I mean, it's not, but he chose to put himself with community. We, as a church, we're just finishing going through this life study of Paul. Paul built community wherever he went. I mean, last week we were looking at the moment where after, while on his way to Rome, they stop at this random port, and he's allowed to go ashore, and he has friends waiting on him. He has community waiting on him. And, Ecclesiastes 4 talks about how much we need people. That, hey, you're in real trouble if you fall alone and there's no one there to pick you up. You're in trouble. Like we need that. Although, yes, online can offer a whole lot of things, and we offer digital content, this podcast is a great example. So this is part of, it's not just your brainchild, Brock. This was part of your vision for our digital campus and our digital engagement, is to offer this, because this allows us to be with you, each of our listeners, every week. But if this is your only thing you do, if this is the only Jesus thing you do all week, and you're never around other believers, and you're never around community, and you only listen to these yahoos on here every Wednesday, you're missing out on so much.
Yeah.
I mean, you're cheating yourself. And I think that's where it is. I don't think I'm not, like I said, I'm not concerned about butts in the chairs. I'm not concerned about, hey, let's cut off the online so that we get more people in service. I mean, a lot of Sundays we can barely get any more people in the service anyway. So that's not the goal. The goal is like what we want for you is to have this long-term, this lifelong, sustainable faith journey with Jesus. We want you to experience the growth and the success and the freedom that comes through Jesus Christ. We want you to have him with you in the good times and the bads. And a huge part of experiencing that is having the church community around you. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's kind of what I think that's all of our heart. We're all pastors here, so that's our heart for people.
Yeah.
Right. And you think about, for me personally, so I get a lot of my most vulnerable, intimate worship through music. I'm a musician. My wife is a musician. Music has been a big part of our lives. I do not know the last time I actually saw somebody worshiping alone to a computer, sitting at home.
Yeah, that's true too.
I mean, for me, the biggest difference, going to church and standing amongst the congregation, listening to hundreds of people praising at once, that's powerful. Yeah. And that music may not be your main way of worshiping. We're still called to worship in every way that we can.
Well, we're told to not stop gathering together.
Right.
I mean, the Bible tells us that. And again, I know the other argument. Oh, I'm joining online. I'm gathering. Yeah, you are. I get it. We're not. But there is something great example for all of us is that one thing we do here at Bayview Church is every year the Sunday after Christmas is something we call Church at Home.
Yep.
It's the one Sunday out of the year where we don't have any in-person services. Everything is online. We do this mostly just kind of give everybody that awesome breather after the busy hecticness of Christmas. It gives our staff, our families, just everybody. Because, I mean, it's beyond just staff, and this out is a lot of churches. It takes tons of people every Sunday to pull church off. I mean, I don't even know how many volunteers we require on a Sunday. It gives everybody that breather. You get to be with your family, and I love those mornings. I love sitting around at home, and I got my kids and grandkids. We're all just sitting around drinking coffee, watching service. There has never been a Sunday in the 5 or 6 years we've been doing it that I remember all of us standing up and singing to the songs.
Right.
Like, I don't.
It's, if anything, it's actually really awkward for people to sit around like, should I be singing right now? But nobody else
No, I'm not saying some don't. Maybe some do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't know.
And that comes down to what they're comfortable with and what they get out of it. And with this whole community talk and everything, this is not even as we said, this is not a digital campus issue. This is not a digital church issue. It's the same thing with just inviting people to church that don't go to church in person at all, or just church in general. Inviting them to church, because we as individuals, we are not responsible for an individual person's choice to go to church. But does that mean we stop offering biblical content just in hopes that it pushes them to? I'm not really sure that's the answer either. I'm not really sure.
Right.
We close our online doors in hopes that people will come to church, because if somebody's going to sit at home on a Sunday morning, they may prefer Bayview's online service. They may prefer New Hope's or Westside's or whoever. Just because we turn ours off doesn't mean they won't just go find another online service to watch instead. Yeah,
I don't think it's just a 1 + 1 = 2. I agree with that. In fact, a lot of stats are telling us that's even not the case.
Right.
So I've been doing some reading on Pew and Barna and different research places, and on one of them it actually says that there has been zero, in their experience, there's been zero correlation to a church shutting down their online service and seeing an instant uptick in their attendance.
Yep.
And so I don't think that can be your motivation behind it at all. I think we have to continue to come back and recognize that people are hungry for something. We're all longing for something. And at the end of the day, while online can provide some of it, it's not going to eventually provide everything. And so this, according to Pew, and this is saying why, in their research, why Americans prefer in-person over virtual services. And it's interesting. The lower numbers, the lowest percentage by far is one commanded by God in the Bible. That's only 5%. Said that was why. They feel the spirit, presence of God more strongly, only 6%. Fewer distractions in person, only 6%. Even what you just said, Brock, the worship practices, communion, sermon, singing are better in person, only 8%. The top two, in-person attendance is just more personal and personable, 14%. But then the biggest one, sense of connection, fellowship, and community, 52%.
Wow.
So over half the people are saying, hey, listen, you can get everything you need online. You can. You can get the word. You can grow spiritually.
Yep.
We're not saying you can't. And for some people, again, that's your only option.
Yep.
There are some people that this is as close as you're going to get. Yep. And we want to continue to try and close that gap. That's still part of your job, right? You're finding out how do we connect. But at the end of the day, if you're choosing it when you don't have to, you're missing out on the biggest thing that this is. And that's a huge part of being part of a church and being the church.
Yeah.
Is community.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that is beneficial about online is, and we were talking about this kind of off, was the front door aspect and the creativity that can come with the online presence. Like that is something that the church, I think COVID really pushed into this online format was that churches had to get a little uncomfortable, but with uncomfortability usually comes creativity and some sort of like, what is the next step? And so we're finding more and more people are either going to our website or they're going to check an online stream service before they ever decide to come check in person. And I feel like more and more people, it's like, oh yeah, I watched you online for a couple months. Yeah. And then I decided to come in person. Like, and so that's where it's the difficulty of getting rid of the stream. It's like, well, we're still going to post the message online, but I think the idea of like getting to see it in the moment where we've not had the chance to clean it up, we haven't had a chance to cut the worship out, so you got to like. I think there's so many things that's like so watch it in the moment. You get to just experience the church. You know what I mean?
Which shows who we are.
Which is a great front door. Peek through the window. Okay, I could go be a part of that.
That's a great word, and that's how it's been referred to. It is a huge front door, and as church, I mean, our goal is to get to have as many front doors as possible, essentially. And for us, again, this might just be us. We can't speak for every church. I mean, we've heard that story dozens of times. I mean, I can't even count how many times. Like, oh yeah, we've been attending, or we've watched, weeks, months. I mean. I had one family recently say they watched us for over a year online, and then they finally were ready to come in person. Awesome. That's super cool in my book.
Yeah, and I think it did wonders for the church from the the be creative side of things too. Again, I think that's what I just kept seeing from a church, is that the willingness to, like, I already said this, but that we can get really comfortable and just kind of do Sunday as well. And I think the online side of things made us as churches really be like, okay, what is this? We've got to also grow and change and shift. And so I think there has been benefits to it. I think there will continue to be benefits to it.
Yeah, and what's really cool is I'm looking back. So obviously Bayview is a growing church. 7 years ago, it was a very, very, very small church. We're growing through COVID. We've been growing, like, past COVID. Obviously, we're bigger than we were, but our online attendance has almost tripled since COVID.
Yeah,
but our in-person congregations have also almost tripled.
To grow year over year.
They are also growing fast, and so it's not like COVID was just meeting this need temporarily for some. Yeah, it's serving us so much more than that, and I think it comes down to how we view it, how we view online service. If we view it as a specific campus where we're trying to draw more people in, okay, maybe we're missing it a little bit because we're not directing them to community. We're trying to create a community that's not there. And some churches have done it great, and if that works for them, that's awesome. Right. But online church is just a conduit for people, for the front door ministry, for people just to check us out as the advertisement for it. But it's not, as long as we're not viewing online church as an intentional gathering spot to send people to, then I think we're okay. I think as long as we continue just to let it be another way of people checking it out. Yeah. Because think about it, last week, say we have 100, 120 people checking out online service, 200 people, whatever. How many of those people wouldn't have
any message that day,
received anything that day? Like, there's no way for us to know, but there are so many people who on Facebook, I guess those are actually, all those numbers are just YouTube. None of these are Facebook numbers. We have so many more on Facebook because on a Sunday morning, you could be scrolling through Facebook and a church's service just pops up. Maybe you stop and watch it for a few minutes. There are so many people that get hooked to, man, I really like watching this church online because I saw them on just scrolling through Facebook and they get connected that way on the spur of the moment. Yeah. We didn't do anything special. We just threw our services online saying, hey, we're live streaming. Come check us out. Right. Just come hang out. We didn't do anything to say, this is what you need to be coming to see. It's just, we're putting more God out there.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Well, I think that we're all committed to one thing, and that is that this really isn't even as much of it's not as much of a tactical conversation as far as, because every church has to make their own decision. Yeah. And like I said, some of the churches we respect and their leaders we respect wildly. have chosen to stop their online streaming that in the mornings, which is awesome if that's what's right for them. And we're going to continue to do what we feel God is asking us to do and what's right for us. But at the end of the day, we're still making our decisions based on people. How are we best serving the people that call Bayview home? Whether you call Bayview home because you're here in person, or whether you've never walked through our front doors, but you've walked through our online front door, and we're your church. We love you, and we just want to see you experience everything that comes with this, and community and accountability and support and love, even just fun and laughter. I mean, so much of our Sunday mornings, they're just fun. I love having fun and laughing, and it's just such a good time. That's all part of it, and we want you to experience all of that.
100%.
And we're committed to do whatever it takes to continue to do that. And at this point, like I said, if you're listening, you're wondering if we're getting ready to drop a big information bomb or announcement. We're not. We have no intention of changing what we're doing.
No. If anything, we're going to continue doing it better because it's pretty public now. We're looking at launching a second campus.
Yep.
What do you need for that? You need an online connection of some sort to actually connect those churches. And I'm not saying that's how we're looking at different options, but we can't view digital church. It's not digital church or in-person church.
Right.
Digital church is not the enemy of incarnate worship.
Ooh, good job.
What?
Because that's exactly what's said on one of these websites I was looking at. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's actually really funny. But
said online church is not the enemy.
That is not what we're against. We're not against people coming to church online. We're against Satan drawing people away with other temptations or things that they prefer to do on a Sunday morning instead. Like we're not shutting down online.
Nope.
Doesn't actually benefit us in any way.
Nope.
But the unknown potential of benefit that it does have for keeping it. We'll just continue.
Here's a good quote from one of the websites I was reading on. This is carlvaders.com. It says, the answer for lagging church attendance isn't less online church. It's more relationship and discipleship when we're in church. Don't just give a good stage presentation. Work with them to have a better shared off-stage experience. And maybe that's a great way to say why in-person is so much more important, because of all the off-stage stuff that you get to that this feeds you and you get to be part of.
Yeah, 100%.
And when you're talking to somebody like during the week, if you're in the process of maybe inviting them to church, don't have any judgment if they say, "Well, I've just been watching online at a few places."
Awesome.
That's great.
Yep.
It's just another reminder. Invite them to come to church and see what it's about in person.
Yeah.
And leave it at that. Like it's just another conversation to start or to say, come to church.
Yeah, it's good.
Nothing's wrong with staying online. Come to church.
Cool.
It's good. Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for being with us today. Hopefully you enjoyed this and maybe gave you some things to think about, chew on. I don't know. Like I said, we weren't going to give you any stone cold lines in the sand today. But yeah, God has definitely provided a lot of great avenues for the gospel to go out there. And that's one big thing that we are all about. And I know everybody is, that we're called to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. And online has become an incredible tool for the gospel, able to reach hundreds more than we ever could in person. And so we will continue to let God use those things for his glory, for his kingdom, by all means. That being said, if you listen online and you watch online and you're from far away, thank you so much. We love that you can connect with us that way. If you're in the area and you've been watching online, you have yet to come in and be with us in person, hey, when you're ready, we would love to have you walk through the front door. We'd love to shake your hand. We'd love to kind of give you a big smile, because there is something powerful about being in the house of the Lord together, something powerful about being with other believers, just that community. But we're going to keep offering that connection. We're going to keep looking to be with you in any way we possibly can, because we love you, we care about you, and we're for you. So if you haven't clicked subscribe yet, do so. If you're enjoying the podcast, that way you never miss another episode. We're here each and every Wednesday on all the major platforms, and so we look forward to this each week. Until next week, this is Andrew, Brock, Chris, saying thanks for being with us today, and we'll see you next time around.